Hiya, hiya. Where's the bird? The bird stays in the picture. Come over here. Hiya, hiya. I'm trying to teach the bird to say hiya, hiya. There was a disc jockey in Buffalo years ago by the name of, well, actually, he was a program director, Dick Lorenz. And the disc jockey before him was George Hound Dog Lorenz, one of the inventors of rock and roll radio, because he was known as Old Man Lorenz, became the Hound Dog, and even brought Elvis Presley to Buffalo, if you can imagine back then. The Hound Dog had a big following on a 50,000 watt station that covered 17 states and 2 nations on the AM band when it was the king, when it ruled. And he was on from Buffalo. Alan Freed was on from Ohio. And I think he was initially, Alan Freed was in Akron, and then I think he moved to Cleveland, if I have this right. Anyway, Alan Freed went on to become the king of rock and roll, coined the phrase rock and roll in New York. He was known as the Moon Dog in Cleveland. Hound Dog was known as the Hound Dog in Buffalo. So they were two dogs. There was a dog fight. And both of them, on the Mistake on the Lake, which is Lake Erie, they came up with this idea of playing race music. And it included James Brown and a great collection of music that led to Little Richard. And I think the next one up, I believe, who's still alive, is Jerry Lee Lewis. And he was at our high school at a record hop. First time we ever heard of a record hop, and we had the priests, were the teachers. So we had a rock and roll school with Jerry Lee Lewis pounding his piano and playing it with his rear end too, his fanny. He used the word fanny. Yeah, it was quite a time, and that was the time that I gave myself a hickey, so I would prime the pump, give girls the idea that this is where it belongs. We didn't have STDs yet, which is being passed on these days. I was not a carrier. And I think for some reason I stayed clean. I don't have the sexual bad rap, and I don't have the stealing from payola. I didn't take payola. So I've just become a real bore. That's what it is. Anyway, George Lorenz, go back to the Hound Dog. All right. Now, he had played this music, and he was very popular with all of it. It was a great outlet for everybody. We all got up and danced, and we loved the music, and he had played whatever he wanted to play, but a guy came along and organized the station, this guy named Dick Lawrence, and he decided it was going to be future sonic. They're going to play 30 records over and over again, and not the insanity of 100 records or 150 or whatever George Lorenz thought should be a hit. We're not going to have no more of this personality picking the music. It's got to be researched. We have to find out what the audience wants. This all started with a jukebox that held 40 records, incidentally, that got played over and over again. And the ones that got played the most frequently, they thought were the hits. So here you go. You got Dick Lawrence, who came along with a parrot. And he did the morning show, got rid of the Hound Dog, George Lorenz, and put himself on the radio with the parrot. So while it was transitionalizing, while the Hound Dog was being let go, he was teaching the parrot some dirty words. Well, Dick Lawrence left the parrot in the studio, and the Hound Dog would stand there and say, "Screw Dick Lawrence, screw Dick Lawrence." Get the parrot to say that over and over again. I am still working on hiya hiya. Screw Dick Lawrence. Oh boy, the imitation of life. Isn't it something? But we offer forgiveness. Look what happened in the courtroom with that great trial in Dallas, where the cop who shot the guy who was eating ice cream mistakenly, supposedly. She went ahead and got a hug from one of the family members, the brother who was silent during all of the trial. So he offered forgiveness, and the judge hugged her. You got George Bush and Ellen DeGeneres, and Ellen's now saying nice things about George Bush on the air and apologizing for being thought of as not a good sport or not a bipartisan. I mean, she said some lovely things about George Bush, and even though during that administration she had some ugly things to say. But that's it. It's about forgiveness. We're in that place now. Now, if we could only get the planet to forgive us our disrespect that we've had for the property here. I was watching a special documentary you know that Steven Spielberg has a documentary on hate and where hate began? I would like to know where it ends. That's the beginning is irrelevant. You know, you go back to the ape and every other theory, but how does it end? How do we end it? And I just gave you a couple examples of it. You know, hate is really it takes the paint off of furniture. You don't want to be using it. Gossip is a kissing cousin of hate. And there's a lot of things like that that we learn, but we don't really want to think about them because they're not entertaining. You know, the dark side's entertaining. We want to see something where there's violence and terrorism and, oh boy, I never got caught doing that, or I wish I had thought of this, or gee, I would never do this, but I'm glad someone else did it. You know, this is all the part of our fabric of our crazy minds that we have. Once again, it's a Reynolds wrap, but I want to wrap it with this. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, on the late Joey Reynolds. Follow me on YouTube, and don't forget also that Instagram will have, it's married to Facebook, but they can't have followers anymore because of stalking. So that's the latest thing with that. It's a Reynolds wrap.